In 1987, someone at the National Park Service typed a memo. That memo listed 12 national parks, 60 families, and one official decision: leave them alone. Tonight, I'm reading you the document they tried to bury, the one that explains why search and rescue teams keep disappearing, why certain rangers never come back, and why park officials had known about feral families living in our national parks for over 40 years and did absolutely nothing. Because here's what they calculated: the cost of admitting these families exist is worth more dead hikers than it is to lost tourism revenue. Before we start, subscribe, because what you're about to hear will make you question every area closed sign you've ever ignored. And drop me a comment telling me where you're listening from and what you would do if you were hiking and a feral family was watching you. For 3 years, Ranger Marcus Webb noticed something that shouldn't exist. A pattern so precise, so deliberate, that it defied coincidence. Every time search and rescue went missing in Cascade National Park, a feral family had been spotted in that exact region just weeks before. It started small. A SAR team of 4 disappeared in 2019 while searching for a lost hiker. 3 weeks prior, hikers reported seeing a family of 5 living in makeshift shelters near that same search zone. The connection was dismissed. Bad luck, coincidence. Then it happened again. In 2020, 2 SAR volunteers vanished while investigating a missing persons case near Dead Horse Creek. 6 weeks earlier, park staff found abandoned campsites with strange markings, later confirmed to be from that same feral family. Again, dismissed. By 2021, Webb couldn't ignore it anymore. He began keeping his own records, cross-referencing disappearances with feral family sightings, and what he found was chilling. The family appeared in the park exactly 21 to 56 days before SAR operations in those areas. They weren't random, they were predictive. Webb obtained old incident reports, files most rangers had forgotten about. A SAR coordinator named James Henley had documented similar patterns back in 1998. His report was filed, then buried. Webb found Henley, now retired, living in a cabin 40 miles from the park. "They know our schedules," Henley told Webb over coffee, his hand shaking. "I'm not supposed to tell you this, but I've been waiting 23 years for someone to figure it out." Henley revealed that in 1997, his team discovered a crude notebook in an abandoned camp. Inside, detailed sketches of patrol routes, ranger vehicle descriptions, shift change times, and SAR team compositions. The family had been studying them, not observing randomly, systematically documenting every aspect of park operations. But here's where it gets even worse. Webb started interviewing rangers who encountered the family directly. One ranger, who asked to remain anonymous, recalled a specific incident. "I saw them in the North Quadrant on a Tuesday. They saw me, made eye contact, and instead of running, they just smiled, like they knew something I didn't." Within 2 weeks, that ranger was reassigned. 3 weeks later, a SAR team went missing in the North Quadrant. Webb realised the family wasn't just predicting SAR operations, they were influencing them. They appeared strategically, reports were filed, and then SAR was dispatched to those exact locations. The family knew where the teams would be sent. They'd already mapped it, already prepared. The most disturbing discovery came when Webb found a pattern within the pattern. The family wasn't attacking all SAR operations, only Pacific ones. Teams led by certain coordinators, teams with specific skill sets, teams on particular shifts. Webb documented 11 SAR disappearances over 20 years. All of them occurred in zones where the family had been spotted weeks before. The probability of coincidence less than 0.001%. He brought his findings to the Park Service Administration in 2022. Their response, "We're aware of the situation. It's being handled." Handled? Webb requested meetings, sent emails, filed formal reports. He was transferred 3 times in 6 months. His access to historical incident files was revoked. Colleagues stopped talking to him. His supervisor suggested he take a stress leave. Then SAR coordinator, Daniel Foster, went missing while investigating a report in the northern section. Foster was experienced, cautious, brilliant. He disappeared without a trace. His last transmission, "I'm checking the northeast ridge. Unusual markers. Probably nothing." It was everything. Webb finally understood. The family wasn't predicting where SAR would be sent. They had someone on the inside feeding them information. Someone in park administration. Someone in dispatch. Someone who knew which teams were being deployed to which locations. That night, Webb packed his research, years of patterns, cross-references, incident reports, and drove to the federal building. He never made it. His car was found empty on Route 90, door open, no signs of a struggle. A search was initiated, then quietly called off. The official report, voluntary disappearance. 6 weeks later, hikers reported seeing a family of 6, one new member, in the northern sector of the Cascade National Park. The family had relocated. The pattern restarted. To this day, Ranger Marcus Webb is listed as missing. His research was never released. Park Service continues operating SAR teams in the Cascade National Park, and every few weeks, hikers report encounters with a feral family that seems to know exactly where rangers will be. Some families don't just live off the land. Some families live off the system itself. In 1987, someone typed a memo that should have never existed. 37 years later, it would explain why 12 national parks had known about feral families living within their borders and did absolutely nothing. Park Ranger Michael Smith found the memo in a filing cabinet marked Archived, Do Not Process. It was dated March the 14th, 1987. The header read, "Internal Memo, Confidential, Not for Distribution." Below that, RE, Off-Grid Populations in Federal Lands, Management Protocol. Smith read it in his small ranger station office, alone, at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. By the time he finished, his hands were shaking. The memo wasn't written by some low-level administrator. It was signed by Richard Thornton, Regional Director of the National Park Service, and copied to 12 park superintendents across the country. The content was methodical, bureaucratic, and utterly damning. "It has come to our attention that multiple national parks contain established off-grid family units. These populations are estimated at 60 to 150 individuals across 12 parks. Current management strategy: observation only, do not engage, do not intervene." The reasoning was spelled out in cold administrative language. Official intervention will require federal manhunts, media coverage, potential violence, and negative publicity. National parks generate $42 billion annually in tourism revenue. Public knowledge of feral families living in parks would devastate visitor numbers, concession contracts, and federal funding. The families posed minimal threat to general population because they primarily inhabited remote sectors and avoided official infrastructure. The memo explicitly said, "Incidents involving park visitors should minimize through standard accident clarifications, falls, drowning, wildlife attacks, exposure." Smith's stomach dropped as he reread that line. The memo included coordinates for all 12 parks, estimated family sizes, known sightings, and recommended buffer zones where SAR operations should be limited. It clarified the families as self-sustaining populations rather than security threats. The language was almost compassionate, till you understood what it actually meant. Leave them alone and let them handle the problem themselves. One paragraph made Smith's blood run cold. Families have demonstrated awareness of ranger schedules and patrol patterns. Recommend maintaining consistent operations to avoid suspicion while limiting high-risk assignments to designated personnel only. They knew, Park Service leadership knew the families were monitoring them, and they continued normal operations anyway, using rangers and SAR teams as a calculated buffer. Smith cross-referenced the coordinates with historical incident reports. Every disappearance matched. Every unexplained death in those parks occurred within 10 miles of the designated family zones. Missing hikers, missing SAR teams, missing rangers, all filed away under accidental circumstances. He discovered a secondary document, an addendum from 1993. It stated, "Protocol has proven effective. Tourist incidents remain within acceptable perimeters. Recommend continuation of current management strategy across all 12 parks." Acceptable perimeters? That meant they've done a cross-benefit analysis. How many deaths were acceptable to protect park revenue? They calculated it. They decided. Smith spent 3 weeks documenting everything. He made copies, secured them with a lawyer, and contacted the FBI field office. The agent he spoke with seemed unsurprised, like they already knew. "We've seen this before," the agent said. "The Park Service does what they need to do to maintain funding. We can't prove systematic negligence. Without current witnesses willing to testify, it's just old paperwork." Smith decided to go public. He contacted journalists at the Washington Post, the New York Times, the local news stations. The response was immediate, and not from all media. Within 48 hours, his supervisor called him in. Within 72, he was reassigned to a remote ranger station in Alaska. His access to historical files was terminated. His employment records were flagged. His security clearance was reviewed. The message was clear: silence or career destruction. Smith tried anyway. He sent documents to congressmen. They were forwarded to the Park Service Inspector General, the same organization being investigated. The documents disappeared from the congressional record. He approached retired rangers who worked in those parks. Most refused to talk. One, a 68-year-old named Robert Garrett, who worked in Yellowstone for 30 years, finally agreed to meet. "That memo exists because people died," Garrett said quietly. "People who should have been rescued, and Park Service decided revenue was worth more than those lives. So they wrote a memo, made it official, protected it with classification, and moved on." "Why didn't you fight?" Smith asked. Garrett looked at him with tired eyes. "Because I have a family, a mortgage, and I learned very quickly that some institutions are too big to fight." Smith lost his job 2 months later. Not fired, his contract simply just wasn't renewed. His attempts to discuss the memo was classified as breach of confidentiality. He was sued by the Department of Interior. The memo was never released. The 12 parks still operate. Families still live there. Rangers still disappear. And somewhere in the filing cabinet, the protocol continues. The DNA evidence arrived on a Friday afternoon in a manila envelope. Dr. Sarah Olson, a forensic anthropologist contacted by the FBI, stared at the genetic analysis for so long she forgot to breathe. All the remains matched, not just similar, identical family lineage across 40 years and 5 different national parks. It started with a bone fragment found in the Great Smoky Mountains in 2019. Human remains recovered near a hiking trail where a family of 4 had disappeared in 1987. Standard protocol, analysis, comparison to missing person databases, filing. The remains didn't match anyone reported missing, so they sat in the evidence storage. Then in 2021, Hikers in Zion National Park discovered skeletal remains in a remote canyon. A missing hiker from 1998. Again, bones were catalogued and filed. But here's what changed everything. A new national database cross-referenced every set of remains across national parks. When Olsen ran the analysis, she discovered something impossible. The families that had died in those parks across 40 years shared genetic markers that shouldn't have been possible without extreme isolation and inbreeding, and the markers matched across parks. Olsen compiled the data. Yellowstone 1984, skeletal remains, family lineage A, family lineage A. Grand Canyon 1991, skeletal remains, family lineage A. Yosemite 98, skeletal remains, family lineage A. Rocky Mountains 2005, Zion 2019, skeletal remains, family lineage A. The same family was living in multiple parks over decades, all branches of the same family coordinated across federal land. Olsen brought her findings to the FBI. What happened next confirmed her suspicion that she stumbled onto something enormous. Within 24 hours, her analysis was classified. Her lab was visited by federal agents. Her digital files were secured. She was told her research was a matter of national security and couldn't be discussed. But Olsen had already made copies. What she discovered was systematically terrifying. Forensic evidence suggested the family had been involved in at least 47 disappearances across the 5 parks over 4 decades. Not all homicides, many were classified as accidental deaths, suicides, or natural causes, but their genetic evidence proved they were connected. The remains showed signs of trauma consistent with predation, not accident. Bones were marked with careful cuts, harvesting marks. Skeletal arrangement suggested ritual positioning. The remains had been deliberately placed where they could be found. The family wasn't hiding evidence, they were leaving it as a testimony. Olsen found the pattern in the kill timeline. Clusters of disappearances occurred every 7 to 10 years, followed by periods of inactivity. It looked like migration patterns, the family moving between parks, operating in one location until it became too risky, then relocating. But the most chilling discovery was in the bone analysis itself. Genetic markers showed the family had been isolated for at least 6 to 8 generations. They weren't recent migrants to the parks. They were born there. Generations of family adapting to life in the wilderness, breeding within the bloodline, becoming something distinct from normal human population. Olsen tried publishing her findings in a peer-reviewed journal. The paper was rejected within 48 hours with no explanation. She tried contacting academic institutions. Departments suddenly had no interest in her research. She reached out to investigative journalists. One, a woman named Catherine Price who specialised in cold cases, agreed to meet her in a public coffee shop. "This is bigger than the families," Price told her after reviewing the evidence. "If this goes public, it doesn't just implement the families, it implements every park administration, every federal agency that knew about them. It's institutional negligence on a massive scale." "So what do we do?" Olsen asked. Price didn't answer, just looked sad. 1 week later, Price was killed in a car accident. Single vehicle, no witnesses, ruled as a driver error. Olsen attended the funeral, so did 3 federal agents, watching from the back. Olsen stopped talking about the research, but the evidence remained, and in 2024, hikers in the remote section of the Olympic National Forest discovered fresh remains, a body no more than 3 months dead, positioned deliberately like the others, with the same ritualistic precision. The DNA matched, family lineage A, still active, still hunting, still leaving evidence. Park Service classified the remains as wildlife scavenging of an accidental death. The family has been living off the land for 40 plus years. The bloodline has survived through predation and isolation, and they're still there, across 12 parks, adapting, evolving, preparing for the next generation. The question isn't whether they exist anymore. The question is, how many more remains are waiting to be found?